Hello guys, welcome back to another C# tutorial. This is going to be another one of my relatively simple courses. Hopefully it's not going to be any longer than 20 minutes, give or take. What we're going to create today is a pretty basic text editor, which is going to allow the user to obviously enter text. Wouldn't be much of a text editor if you couldn't enter text or edit it. And allow the user then to save their text file into a location of their choice, and then to retrieve the file and redisplay it in the text edit window. So without further ado, the first thing we need to do obviously is to create the form. So we'll create a new project, Windows Desktop, Windows Forms application. We're going to call this Basic Editor because that's exactly what it is. So we'll click OK. Here's our simple form. We'll give this form a name, so we'll pop over here to the Properties panel for the form. Go to Appearance, then go down to the text, which is the title of the form, and we are going to give this title Basic Editor. As you can see in the top here, the title bar, we've now got a new name. Let's put a space in there, it's a little bit more appropriate. And then the form name itself is under Design, so we'll scroll down here to the Design section. You'll see here the name of the form, or the name of the form object is Form, so we'll call that form Basic Edit, so we can distinguish it from other forms if we create them, which we won't be, but anyway, it's good practice to name all your controls. Next thing we need to do is obviously place some area for us to start typing text. So what we're going to use is a control called a rich text box. So we're going to click on Common Controls here, and then look somewhere down the bottom here. You'll see you've got rich text box option. So we'll just drag that, click it, and drag it onto your form. And then drag it up somewhere to the top left and then down to the bottom right, but leave yourself a little bit of space at the bottom there because we're going to need to put some buttons on there in a minute. Okay, so this is a rich text box window, and it will allow us to enter text and enter multiple lines. So again, let's go over to the properties for the rich text box and go to the designer, and then under the designer we need to find the name here, which is rich text box, so we'll call it edit window. Next thing we need to do is add two buttons, one for loading files and one for saving files. So we'll drag a button down here and we will call this one load. So let's pop over here again to the properties panel and look for the design button, give this one the name load, and then we'll go up here to the appearance where we want to find the text appearance, and it says right here, button 1. We'll give it the name load, enter, and as you'll see the button now has changed its name to load. Create a new button, drag him over here, align him with the first button, and this one's going to be our save button. So again, appearance, where are we, appearance, text, save, and then design, which is down here somewhere. There we go, design, button, save. So it's now got the object name of button save. Now, if you know anything about file creation, you know you can create a file and then create a new file which will overwrite or erase the existing file with the new data and so on and so forth. Or you can create the file and you can append to the file, so you can add stuff on a rolling basis. Say for example you are entering data every day, you obviously don't want to erase the original data, so you would append to that file. On the other hand, you might want to create a new file every day because you're not interested in the history. So the StreamWriter gives you that option to append to or to create a new one. So to be able to toggle that so we can select one at our leisure, we're going to use a thing called a checkbox, which is just here. We're going to drag this down, so it's in your common controls. Look, checkbox. Just drag that down and align that with your buttons. And we'll give that thing the name checkbox overwrite, because this is what we're going to use to determine whether we want to overwrite the file or append to the file, and then obviously pop up to the appearance once again, and under appearance we want to scroll down, here we go, appearance, text, checkbox, so we want to give it the name overwrite. This is actually the text that will appear on the checkbox in the Windows form, so you need to get it right. That will do approximately. One thing I'd like to do actually, if we run this, I just want to show you something, and then we click on the window. Let's bring it into focus. Here we go. If you drag this window down, you'll see that the controls don't move with respect to the border, or neither does the text area. What we would like to do is for these controls at the bottom here, the load, save and override button, to move with respect to the bottom right of the form, to maintain perspective, and also this text area, we want this to grow and shrink relative to the size of the primary form. So to do that, you need to make sure you've got one of the controls inside the main form selected. So one of the controls that you actually want to anchor. So we're going to anchor the rich text box for the moment, so make sure we've got that selected. We go over here to the properties panel, look for the layout section, look for anchor, select it, and make sure that all four sides are selected. Okay, then select out of that window to accept that change, then press start. We'll have a look to see what the effect of that is, and hopefully it's had the desired effect. As you can see now, it certainly has. It's actually allowing the rich text box to grow with the main window, but the controls are obviously not moving. So we'll fix that right now. Click the load button, go back to your properties, to layout, to anchor, drop down, select the right, select the bottom, deselect the left and deselect the top, then select out of the window to make that to accept that change. Do the same again with the save button. Okay, select the bottom, the right, deselect the left, deselect the top, and then do the same again with the checkbox. Select the checkbox, deselect the top and the left, reselect the right and the bottom, select out again. Okay, run that, get the application back onto the correct monitor, and then let's drag and see what happens. There we go, look, exactly what we want. So what this basically means now is we can load large files and we can see all the text in one hit. So great stuff. So all that's left to do now obviously is to implement the code behind these controls. First thing we obviously want to do is to be able to create a text file. So we'll double click on the save button so we can save the text that we enter into this text area. That pops up a window, which is our code edit window for the code behind the form. You'll notice that it's automatically created a button save click event handler here. So all we need to do now is enter some code into this event handler. So we want to be able to browse to a location and create the file that we wish to save our text into. So we're going to use something called a save file dialog. So let's type save file dialog. Okay, and you'll see that the IntelliSense has picked it up for us, and we'll call it an SFD for short, equals new. So we're going to create a new object of type save file dialog, some parentheses, semicolon, and we need to obviously respond to the user clicking OK. If they click cancel, obviously we don't want to create the file, so we will do a logical if statement, if parentheses, and we'll do an SFD dot show dialog. So obviously this is going to pop the dialog up, and then when you click OK within the dialog will close and it will return a property, and that property will hopefully be OK or cancel. Okay, so we're looking for the OK, so that's a dialog property, so we'll do a double equals. So an equals, remember, is an assignment. A double equals is a logical comparison operator. Space, and we are looking for a dialog result, and the IntelliSense, as you can see, is smart enough to suggest the correct operator for you. As you can see, it's the System Windows Forms Dialog result. It's light green, not dark green, which basically means it's an enum. Press the period key and you'll see that you've gone OK, which is what we're after. So basically, if the user selected OK, we want to execute the following code within these curly braces. And now what we need to do is we need to obviously create a StreamWriter object so we can write our text to the file. So that's relatively straightforward. We're going to use a using statement, parentheses, and then we're going to be using the system.io.StreamWriter. StreamWriter equals new system.StreamWriter parentheses, and you'll see here that this method is actually overridden. If you look at the helper that's popped up here, this tooltip, you'll see you've got 1 of 8, which basically means it's overridden. So you've got 8 flavors of this thing. You can create StreamWriter and just point straight to the path, or you've got a whole bunch of options here which we're not going to go into. The only one we are going to go into is the append or the overwrite option, which is true or false. True to overwrite, false not to overwrite. Okay. So we obviously need the file name that we're going to select. So that's going to be the open file dialog dot file name, comma, and then we want to basically do the append. So here we go. It's the override. It's the 3 of the 8th methods available to us. So you've got string path, and then you can see you've got bool append. Okay, and that's bool, which basically is obviously logical true or false. So we're going to use our checkbox. So in here we will type checkbox, which actually returns checked true or false. So checkbox overwrite is our checkbox that we entered into our form, and inside of that you've got a property called checked. There you go. Okay, so we're going to ascertain as to whether it's checked. If it is checked, we want to overwrite, and if it's not checked, we don't want to overwrite. It's as simple as that. Okay, so this is actually going to do the inverse to what we expect. Basically, create our StreamWriter object and overwrite it if it's checked. We want to invert that. Okay. So, i.e., if it's checked, if it's not checked, don't overwrite it. If it is checked, overwrite it. Make sense? Okay, so basically, if we didn't have that inverse on there, we would have append. Okay, if you can remember the overwrite here, bool append. Append is true. True append, check append, and if you go back to our form here, it says overwrite it if it's checked. Okay, which is the opposite to what the actual function is expecting. It's saying check me if you want to append me, not overwrite me. So we obviously need to invert that. We put the exclamation mark in front of that. That basically means if not checked, append or don't append. Okay, so basically if the checkbox is checked, invert that, i.e. it's not checked, so therefore don't append, i.e. write to the file. I probably made that a little bit more complicated than what it needed to be. Suffice to say, we just want the opposite of the actual expected functionality from the method. Okay. I hope that's clear. If not, just drop me a message below and abuse me or request some help, and I'll try and go through it a little bit clearer. So, without further ado, we now need to obviously wrap that in some braces, and then we need to obviously execute the code inside of these braces, which is saving the text inside the rich text box. Notice we've got ourselves a little squiggly here. The name OFD doesn't actually exist. So we've called it an open file dialog. It's actually a save file dialog, so that'll fix that, and we're away. So now basically we need to essentially loop over all of the lines in our rich text box, or iterate over the lines in our rich text box and write them to our text file. So that's fairly straightforward. We'll use a for. Oh, actually, before we go ahead, I just want to explain this using. I don't know if you understand what this actually implies. Essentially, when you create an object such as the StreamWriter, when you're finished, you need to close the file, and then you need to set the dispose of the StreamWriter object. by enclosing this inside the using method, the system will dispose of this. It will close the file and dispose of the object for you. So it just saves us a bit of tidying up or house cleaning later on in the application. Okay, so it's a good habit to get into. Okay, so we're going to use the for each. So basically it means for each type or for each parameter or for each object inside of an object, do the following. So we are going to say for each variant line in our rich text box edit window dot lines, perform the following, and the following being StreamWriter dot write line parentheses, and then we obviously just want to write the line out, so we're just going to type line in here, and then we'll do a semicolon. Now we don't need to put any carriage returns or new lines in here because the right line will do it for you. Okay, so that should essentially write to our file for us. So let's give that a test. Start. Drag the panel off the other monitor. Type in some text. Hello there. We won't bother with the obligatory hello world. Click save. Pops up our dialog. Type in a file name test.txt. Click save. Then let's click save again just to pop up the browser, and we can see the text, or the file at least, has been created. So the next step is to obviously open that and see what's in there. So we need to implement our load function. So let's cancel that, stop the application, go back to our form, double click on the load button. Now the load is kind of the save but in reverse. Obviously, kind of makes sense really if you think about it. So we need to create an open file dialog, not a save file dialog. So we'll do an open file until it sends to the rescue again. We'll call this one OFD equals new. So we'll instantiate a new object, semicolon. Okay, so we've got our open file dialog. And of course, I've got the D and the F, ask about face. And then we need to obviously ascertain as to whether the user has clicked OK on the file that they wish to open. So we will use the if statement once again. This time we're going to use the OFD dot show dialog, show dialog, parentheses equals intelligence to the rescue again, dialog results dot OK. Oops, both capitals. Couple of curly braces. So everything within these braces now will be executed upon the acknowledgement of the user accepting the file that he selected. So within here we obviously need to create a stream reader. So we are going to do a using as explained earlier, and then within here it's obviously the system namespace dot input output namespace dot stream reader. Okay, stream reader equals new tab. We'll let IntelliSense do the work for us again. Open parentheses, and here you will see we have got a whole bunch of more options, but this time we are only interested in loading the file up. Okay, so we're not going to go into any of the other overloads. We're just going to pick this one and pass in the file that the user's pointed to using his open file dialog dot file name tab. That is it. Carriage return and a couple of curlies. That rounds that up. Now all that's left to do is obviously read in the text, which is very, very simple. One line. Which text box edit window dot text. So the text in the edit window equals stream reader dot, and we want to read to the end of the file. Okay, so we look for read to end, shut him down with some parentheses and a semicolon. That, my friends, is it. So we'll click start to demonstrate that. Drag the application back onto the second monitor. Click load. There's our text file. Click open, and hopefully we'll see our text. Hello there. So it worked a treat. Now I hear you ask, what about this overwrite function? Well, overwrite has already been implemented. As you saw up here, we actually put the not checked box overwrite, and as you remember, I made a right codswallop of trying to explain it, but in summary, if this value is checked or true, we will append. If it's not checked, we will overwrite. If you look at the form, we've got the opposite going on. We want to overwrite when it is true. So for that functionality to perform, we need to invert the value of the checkbox. So we've prefixed that with an exclamation mark. So that basically reads, if not checked, then don't, if not checked, then append. And if, if not checked, then append. If checked, delete. Okay. Again, made it as clear as mud, but anyway, I think you get my meaning. You'll find out soon enough when you start testing it. So let's do that. Okay, let's run this little puppy yet again. As you know, when we loaded our text file, we had hello there. Now, if we type in hello world and save this without clicking our text box, hopefully we will still have hello world in the original file. Okay, so we'll save it to the original file and we'll overwrite that. Okay, and then we'll delete this text and we will reload it, go to our file and open it up. You will see there that we have actually appended the text exactly as expected. However, if we delete that and go to test me, click on overwrite and click on save and overwrite the existing file. Now when we go to load it, actually let's close that down a minute. Let's clear the text. Now when we go to load file, double click, you'll see that it's obviously overwritten the existing text. So I hope you found that useful. I hope it was relatively clear. I do apologise about the explanation for the overwrite functionality. I'll make sure I've got my teeth in next time. But yeah, it's fairly straightforward, fairly simple, fairly basic stuff, like most of these things are when you know how. It's just a case of getting your head around the safe file dialog and the StreamWriter. As you saw, there was a lot of other properties. I would suggest you go away and experiment now with the safe file dialog and the StreamWriters and the readers, because as you saw, you could write lines, write text, etc., write async. The other thing you'll notice is that with the file dialog, we didn't actually implement any filters. So when we click on load, for example, down here, you will notice that we don't actually have any wildcards for the file types. Yeah. Or the save, if we click on the save, it's a bit clearer down here, like save file type. We've not actually implemented that. That's pretty straightforward to implement, and maybe we'll do that in a future video. But this one's all about the text editor, really. We've already taken 18 minutes, so I don't really want to go on too much about this. So maybe in another video. So, but anyway, guys, thanks for bearing with me. Thanks for sticking it out to the end. I hope you learned something from that. If you've got any suggestions for future videos, or any ideas, drop a note below, let me know, and I'll see what I can do for you guys. So until then, take care, look after yourselves and stay safe. Bye for now.